page 30, there's a quote I highlighted here. I just wanted to bring it up because it kind of wraps up what the overall topic was of the chapter. And so it's right before provide a menu.
Yes, sir.
And so it says, to reduce reactance, catalysts allow for agency, not by telling people what to do or by being completely hands-off, but by finding the middle ground, by guiding their path. 4 key ways to do that are: 1, provide a menu; 2, ask, do not tell; 3, highlight a gap; and 4, start with understanding.
Yeah.
And so the rest of the chapter proceeds with these 4 alternative actions. I wouldn't say to persuade, but to help people along their changing journey.
Yeah. It's interesting because I feel like from 7 Habits to even Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules of Life, I feel like start with understanding has always been first.
Yeah.
And this is the first book where it starts with something else, providing a menu. Right. And that's choice, because he references choice is by far the most important thing that someone can have. And
right.
Having the choice to feel important it is damn near important than anything else.
I think it almost goes to the fact that it could even be like in a workplace type of thing, and you don't necessarily have to understand where they're coming from, but you're just trying to make work a little bit enjoyable for everybody. Right. So you can be like, here's the 3 choices. I really don't have to know why you're picking this, but as long as you pick something, I'm happy with it, you know?
Yeah. I think all 4 of these options we've done continuously. Think about our content ideas.
Yeah.
We provide a menu like, okay, so what do we want to do? This is the things that we want to do. Then we ask, don't tell. We're like, okay, Jay, so what do you want to do? John, what do you want to do? And then we highlight the gap. How do we merge all of this stuff to where it fits what everybody wants to do?
You know what? If you remember when you made the first concept, do you remember how I was upset with you? Because you only made 1. And I was like, well, I want more than 1. I was like, even if the first one's the best one, I was like, you got to at least give me 3. Like, you know, because I was upset that you only gave me 1 thing. This is before we even read this. Yeah. I feel like I had no choice. I was like, oh, this is what David thinks, right? Where's my input?
True. So that's interesting.
And we still picked the first one.
Yeah, and we'll talk about it later. But all right. So, do you guys want to discuss each of these alternative actions in depth?
You can just go through and highlight what you feel is important. Like,
yeah,
I thought the provide a menu one, I wrote down Bitwise it does this.
Okay.
Letting potential hires choose which dimension is more important makes them feel like they have more of an active role in the process, and hopefully satisfies their need to negotiate. I feel like Bitwise in a way does that because they almost like say, well, what do you think you want to do? And they're more adamant about doing that as long as the menu is pertaining to Bitwise. You want to be this for Bitwise? Okay, we'll give you the position to do that. We'll provide you that platform. And most of the time, people are very good at what they do there because that's what they signed up for because they wanted to do that.
Yeah.
So I think that was pretty interesting. I was like, oh, wow.
For me, this whole chapter, I thought the menu thing was the most relatable tool to use naturally when interacting with people, just in general. Because, as we've brought up multiple times, for my own personal self, that's where I find the most fulfillment in moving forward with something. As long as I have like some sort of choice, we could do what you guys want to do in the beginning, but I feel like I had a choice.
Yeah, I feel like every single person on this planet wants to feel a sense of importance, whether it's a simple choice, whether it's a hierarchy of status, where if it's a better car than somebody else. I think everybody wants importance, and we all get that from we all get that driving factor from somewhere in our life. But I think majority of people get it from having choices in life, right? Like if you can wake up at 12 a.m. to go to work rather than 6 a.m., now you have a choice. Yeah. Rather than just be like, nope, you got to be up at 6 o'clock. We're going to be working. Not too bad.
Yeah, it's like saying you can work night shift or morning shift.
Yeah, and people have a choice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So.
Definitely. So I just wanted to define providing a menu. So on page 31, it says, it's providing a menu, a limited set of options from which people can choose. And what he kind of goes further into deciding too is like, I think he says when you ask your girl to go out to eat, I think he brings that up. He's like,
he does.
She, you provide her with one choice, like, okay, well, Mexican sounds good. She's gonna break that down and be like, that's a bad idea. It. But if you're like, okay, I'm feeling Mexican or seafood, then she can choose from those options. Either you're okay with.
Yeah.
So like the ultimate move, I think, would be like, okay, this is what I want to do. I'm gonna bring it up to my person, whoever I'm having this discussion with. But these are the 3 options I'm totally okay with. So here's the 3 options. You choose, right? Or here's 2 options. You choose. Don't let them know you're totally okay with any of them, because then there might be leaning some certain way. Just be like, look, I'm okay with all these under the surface. Choose one.
That's why I've been reading this book, and I keep thinking of a shepherd, whether it's a dog or someone that helps guide the pack.
Yeah.
And the shepherd still gets the pack to do whatever he wants, you know, but he's just laying out options to help steer them, you know.
Right.
It's like all multiple choice, but all choices lead to what he wants.
Right.
You know.
Right.
What was was it in Jordan Peterson where he talks about too much freedom can actually be harmful for us?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
And I think
It is harmful.
I do appreciate this book a lot, but I always think about that every time I hear about all these choices. And he even mentions, like, you shouldn't give smart agencies share multiple directions, not 10 or 15, but 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, like, what if 2 or 3 is too many? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what if giving too many giving choices to everything in life is too much? Like, sometimes there has to be, like, just a solid direction, and you have to adapt to be in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're not gonna give a menu to everything,
Yeah.
or you gotta know when to just be like, this is what we're doing, you know,
Yeah.
and be a leader, or know when doing it this way is better for you and better for the group.
Yeah, because even, like, back to the reference that Jay was saying, when the boyfriend girlfriend, obviously it could be vice versa, it doesn't matter, but in this the example was the boyfriend and girlfriend. He gives her the menu, gives her the choices, but then he says, and suddenly she stopped arguing. She never liked both options he suggested, and she still come up with some reason why one person was less than ideal, but at least she picked one.
Mm-hmm.
So even that shows you that choice is, like, it's important to have a choice, but you gotta fucking pick one.
Right.
You know,
You have to follow the guy. You have to follow the direction.
you made me think of Too Much Freedom. We had this bar. We called it, for a certain period of time, we just started calling it the No Rules Bar. I think I was telling you about this earlier. And you could just walk in the back and you could bring in your own beer and stuff. We, like, found out kind of low key, and then I was like, oh, you can just bring your own beer? Let's just fucking bring your own beer in here. And then we just were like, this is the No Rules Bar. You can stand up on the tables. You can do whatever you want.
And then it wasn't a bar anymore.
And then all of a sudden, I'm looking around, and there's like 16-year-olds at the bar, and it's when you give people too much freedom, they just want to keep taking, and then the bar got shut down. They gave us too much freedom, you know.
Yeah.
But if we could have just maybe had a little bit of guidelines, we could have kept this great thing going.
Right.
For
But-
real.
Definitely.
That's hard, though, because what if, obviously you can...
No, you can't. Well, once you open the floodgates, it was just chaos. You walk in, there's
it's
no order.
impossible to keep that going.
Right. So on page 32, it's still on the provide a menu. Back on the idea of, okay, you and your girl are trying to figure out what to eat for dinner, and you provide her with one option. And so it says here, try to convince people to do something, and they spend a lot of of their time counter arguing, thinking about the various reasons why it's a bad idea or why something else would be better, why they don't want to do what was suggested. But giving people multiple options, and suddenly things shift. Rather than thinking about what is wrong with whatever was suggested, they think about which one is better. Rather than poking holes in whatever was raised, they think about which option is best for them. And because they've been participating, they're much more likely to go with one of them in the end.
Sure.
And so, like, you give person the choice, they're going to be happier than if they were just, this is what we're eating. They didn't have any choice in the matter. So, next time your girl asks you to eat what do you want to eat for dinner, just give her 2 choices and eat both of them you like anyway. You have to deal with the, oh my God.
That's just...
God, I can't stand that.
Oh, man, that shit, bro.
All right, so we're getting Carl Jr. Wow. All right, so we're getting
that.
this.
We're
So,
eating fucking Taco Bell. I don't give
do
a
you all
fuck.
have any other notes or statements that you guys liked from that subsection?
No, we can go past the
Yeah.
menu. I think that's enough.
Next.
Past the whole menu?
Mhm.
I had one thing. Sorry.
Okay.
On the menu?
Sure.
Yeah, so... Oh, what's the next...
It's ask, don't tell.
Okay. So, here's my thing. I was reading this, and I wanted to highlight what you guys... Or know what you guys thought about asking questions, because in the example that he uses on page 37, questions encourage the listeners to commit to the conclusion, which I absolutely agree. Isn't that the same thing as probing, though? Like probing questions? Or is there like a certain balance that you guys think? Because in the I think in the example, he was using very
Uses a professor to students.
Yeah, like the questions were,
He's like,
well, how do you become a successful salesman?
he's like, put a stake in the ground. And
Yeah, well, how do you
constantly admit that junk? Okay.
It's, to me, I felt like he was maybe probing a little bit.
What page are you on? 37?
37. Well, if you do this, well, then how will you do that? Or will do this, will they do that?
He gives it. I don't know if this answers your question on that. Is it probing when you're asking questions? But he states questions do a couple things. First, like providing a menu, questions shift the listener's role. Rather than counter-arguing or thinking about all the reasons they disagree with the statement, listeners are occupied with a different task, figuring out an answer to the question, how they feel about it, or their opinion, something most people are more than happy to do. Meaning, like, if I ask you a question, I'm trying to figure out where you stand on it. Because majority of the time, people like talking about what they believe and what they like. If it was probing, that would be like, hey, look at this black shirt. I got this black shirt. It's super sick. Do you have a black shirt? I'm almost enticing you to say that you like a black shirt because I like my black shirt.
Well, I'm thinking of probing in a way as like, okay, maybe probing questions, which for the readers, like, there's an idea that was, or a concept that we read, which was probing someone with questions isn't necessarily an effective way to get them to, how would you say?
They start feeling attacked because...
Feeling attacked, right? Personally attacked. Maybe probing, the definition between constructive questions and probing questions is that the probing questions, usually someone already knows that they have an intent to reply. If I'm asking you a question, I'm just probing you so that way I can set you up and tell you what I think is...
Or you're trying to get the answer you want.
I think what Devin read earlier is a good example of what he's trying to do. And I think what you're asking is, I think it's probing. It is. But you have to know the situation. I'm thinking, for example, if I would have used that tactic against my ex, she would have felt very overwhelmed because probing was like kind of productive with her. So maybe you wouldn't use that tactic with that person. The ask, don't tell thing doesn't work for them. You use one of the other 4 tactics. Menu. What are the other ones?
Write a menu, highlight a gap.
Highlight a gap.
Start
but
with understanding.
Maybe, for example, you in your situation, maybe the ask don't tell thing, the probing wouldn't work with you and your partner because of just how she is, So maybe like the menu option works better for her, or the highlighted gap thing, because some people.
Oh, I did, yeah.
So some people probing it flusters them, but some people, like Devin brought up, they're more than happy to
talk about.
Chelsea would be a great example of probing. You start a question, she's more than happy to give you everything in her head, So she wouldn't feel attacked by that.
Yeah.
So maybe, and the menu thing might not work for her because she's got her own menu that she's already thought about.
I don't think people necessarily feel attacked. I think it's based on your motives and your intentions. What questions are you asking? Because you did this with your brother, and he was more than willing to tell you, no, I don't want to fail these classes. No, I want this. Do you want No, I want her to stay. You know what I mean? People are more than willing to tell you what they want. I think it's your intention and like the tone of your voice.
True.
Like, why the fuck do you go outside when it's hot outside? That tone sounds like I'm attacking you. Like that sounds like.
Or like, you want to pass school, don't you? Like, why are you not like?
Yeah, that's not a constructive question. That's like.
Even then, I'm just thinking about. I know people. If I start asking a bunch of questions like that to lead them to an answer, they start getting flustered because they don't like being put on the spot like that. They have to have time to think and digest their thoughts.
I think his questioning starts with the end in mind first, and then he.
Yeah, because he's trying to lead them into something.
Exactly.
I'm just saying, some people, if you ask them 2 or 3 more questions, they feel flustered because there's like a lot of shit in their brain they gotta like digest and think about.
Good example is that guy at the bar when you said that you met like this guy that was hanging out with you and Carlos or someone that was it, I don't know who it was. You were saying somebody and you asked him like, hey, so what do you do? And he just like was super brief. And you asked him another question, and he was just like,
yeah.
Some people just don't want to have conversation. You know what I mean? Like to me, that is sort of like the probing that you're talking about.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I think that answered my question pretty well.
I would think intention has a lot to play with that. Like,
agreed.
If your intention is to understand somebody, and like I think it all kind of balances with what you guys said in terms of like how are they going to react. But if your intention is like I genuinely want to understand, then I don't think it would be taken as probing, right? Because this person, I mean, everybody can talk about themselves, right? But if your intention is like I'm trying to get this answer out of you, and I'm going to ask questions to get this answer out of you so I can respond, then I think it comes across as probing. But if it's like, and I think you're really good with this, is like asking questions to just spark thought.
You are. You always make me think, like make me backtrack on what I just said.
Right. And I remember bringing this up before when we were reading that book about, hey, probing isn't that great. I think it was 7 Habits, right? We're talking about, okay, don't probe, but like try to first seek to understand. And seeking to understand would be asking those questions. So I remember bringing it up like, okay, well, how would you do this without probing? And you were like, well, I think, your questions just have to be kind of genuine. And is this person willing to even share? Probing, I think it all has to do with intention.
Okay.
Yeah.
Definitely. And yeah.
And back to the thing, he's given us a bunch of tools to use, but if someone gives me 4 tools, I don't have to use all 4. Maybe I just need the one,
Okay.
Right.
Nice.
Like for myself, I get home from a camping trip, my mom asks me 100 million questions, and I'm like, look, I just, like, not right now. I know your intention isn't to just be, like, super over the top, but, like, right now, I just need, like, a day. Just give me a day, and I'll share it all.
Also, my mom will call me, and she's blowing me up, and I'm, like, all hungover, and I'm stressed out, I got shit going on. I'm like,
Yeah, just give me one day.
I will call you, because I like talking to you, and I'll tell you about my whole weekend, because I'm excited about it, but just give me a second.
Yeah.
Don't probe me right now.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
I need to breathe mentally,
But it does make sense, though, too, because, like, if you make somebody commit to a conclusion, like, let's say with your brother, you're like, well, you want to pass class, right? It's not like that's probing. It's like, it's a question that should have an answer. Like, yeah, of course I want to pass high school. Okay, well, then why are you doing this, and this?
Yeah, that's highlighting.
You know what I mean? That's highlighting the gap.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think highlighting the gap's a good one. It's like almost a continuation of the probing thing,
Yeah, because even with the subsection that you highlighted, like the Nafez, he's asking his students, how much do you guys think you should study? Like, he's doing everything that,
it's
like,
a genuine.
You know what I mean? He's trying. Obviously, he has an intention on where he wants the conversation to end.
Right. Yeah.
But he's trying to get a level playing field. He's trying to figure out where everybody sits.
And that scenario is great for that. It's a brand new class they just started, and he's trying to get them to come to the conclusion. So this is what it takes, So
Yeah. I'll share in my experience with highlighting a gap. Somebody I was talking to, I noticed, like, okay, words were like, yeah, I want to hang out. Yeah, I want to hang out. Okay, cool. Like, that's cool. And so I'd be like, all right, well, let's hang out. Like, Wednesday come around, they'd flake. And then I'd see him again the next time, and I'd be like, all right, I'm going to let you slide on that one, but how about this time? Let's hang out on Tuesday. Tuesday come, they flake. And I'd be like, all right, so I brought it to her attention. I was like, your actions don't match your behaviors, and behavior shows me your intention. And so she, like, she was taken aback at first, didn't really say anything, and then like 2-3 days go by, and she's like, look, I've been messing up, and so, like, highlighting the gap really did make a change in that person.
it puts it in their face.
Yeah,
They go,
like,
it's like a mirror almost.
Yeah, you're like, look, like, this is what you've done. Like, imagine me being like, oh, okay, I'm gonna make you dinner on Tuesday night. Tuesday night comes, you're driving to my house, and I'm like, oh yeah, don't come over, I got shit.
You're already halfway over.
Yeah, you're like, there's a gap here between your actions and your behavior. Your actions and your words, right? And that's been a big thing for me over past, like, 2020. It was like paying attention what people say and then watching what they do. Right? Because then you can see the gap. It's not always your responsibility to bring it that person's attention. It kind of, where is it on your priority list?
I'm a big action guy. Yeah,
right.
I feel that.
Actions are number one for me, right? Like, if like your actions don't match your words, then we're and it tends not to for a lot of people, right? It's just like, then something's not right there.
Just for example, I don't have to say that ACE is very important to me. My actions say it because I make time for them consistently. Like, this is, think about you.
Definitely. Yeah. So I can see how highlighting a gap it can be super useful.
My parents did that to me sometimes.
It's a good
ACE
tool.
action.
Right.
Can I get a light?
Highlight a gap where they talk about people in Thailand. They're approached on the street by a child. Well, at first in the book, they don't mention that the person that comes up to them asking for a light is a child, but then they eventually reveal that, and the adults or the people smoking say, "No, aren't you too young for that? Or don't you know smoking's bad for you?" And that's where highlighting a gap, like, they acknowledge that is bad for them,
right?
But they're telling kids not to do it.
Because they're trying to protect them.
So it's like, And I posted this on my story. It says at the very bottom, it's a small note folded into fours because they handed the people that were smoking, and the kid walked away. So they handed the adults a note that were smoking, and it says, "A secret passed under the table at school. You worry about me," it said, "but why not worry about yourself?"
Yeah.
So I think that's what a lot of people in our society now kind of live in, that like they're so worried about other people and like, oh, why do you do that? Or like so judgmental rather than like fixing the gaps you have. Work on the gaps you have in your life that like you aren't perfect at.
I saw this really funny video on Instagram, and he's like, how can someone with acne be racist? He goes, why don't you worry about your own skin? And I just thought that shit was funny because like it's exactly what you said. Hey, you should bring order to your own house before you can judge other people.
Exactly.
That's rule number 2, right?
That's my I love saying that.
What?
To my mom. Put your own house in order.
Yeah, before pointing out the chaos in somebody else's house.
Yeah.
Make sure
Dead
your house is in
ass,
perfect
yo.
order.
I feel like we covered a good amount on this.
Yeah.
Feel like finding the gap or
Me too.
highlighting the gap.
I wanted to talk about start with understanding.
Yeah. We can
Page
jump there.
43.
Okay.
This figure here, I wanted to discuss it.
Oh, understanding, trust, and change.
Yeah.
Oh, that's stocks. They always go up.
Yeah. So on our y-axis we have active listening, and our x-axis we have time. And so I just wanted to like discuss this with you guys. I want to hear all your guys' how you perceive this.
Just this diagram?
Yeah, just break it down for me.
Yeah, the beginning of the chapter where he mentions life is like the hare race, like the tortoise versus the hare, and then change is like a small part in between. There is a sloth.
Three-toed sloth.
Yeah, three-toed sloth on its lunch break.
Right.
And we all know that sloths move like fucking slow motion.
Yeah.
Utopia.
So
Yeah. So
till they tell
every DMV worker I've ever seen.
And so like I think this graph is, if like we were looking at this is like a 10-year span.
10-year span.
Yeah, this
Okay.
is not like a small, like it's a graph. Like obviously the bottom is the time, and
Right.
I think that's the most important part. Like understanding might be 3 years, trust might be 4 years, and change might be the rest, right? Like,
Okay.
For
So
me,
you're breaking it down the x-axis.
For me, the way I see it, and I'm a big fan of time. I used to always think to be a better welder, I need to put more hood time. To be a better shape, I need to put more time in the gym. The way I see this is time equals everything. First, you need to understand what you're doing. Then you go to trust in your own process. Once you get that handled, you'll finally see change. And that can be at any time frame. But first you need to understand, trust the process, change. And then keep going. Understand the next concept, trust the process, you see change.
Nice.
yeah, definitely.
David.
I think it's interesting that I don't remember in math if like this line
It's a direct
is
relationship.
the fastest one, right? I'm not sure, but I think it's interesting that active listening is the sloped line, you know, because that one is the one that's it's making everything go. Time is gonna happen, yes, and understanding in combination with understanding, trust, and change time. But I think without active listening, then you wouldn't get to the actual change, which is like it's like the faster of them or something. That's what I'm kind of seeing. Like active listening is the middle.
That's
Yeah.
the hardest part, because we understand that majority of people, when they're quote unquote listening, they're thinking of already something else. They're thinking a premeditated statement to say after that person's done talking.
So let's define active listening.
For the readers?
Sure.
I think active listening is you being able to listen to somebody and then fully, not paraphrase, but fully put into context what that person is saying in your own words, but not missing any details.
The Rogerian method.
Exactly.
Is that repeated back to them? Okay.
To their satisfaction.
So
Okay.
if you can't do that when you're listening to somebody in a story, a conversation, then you're not you're not actively listening.
I think that's really good. Anybody else have anything to add?
I think for me, a really good test you guys can do to see if you're a good listener is if you're ever having a conversation with somebody and you guys get off topic and the person goes, where did I leave off? If you can pick up where they left off and run it back, that means you were actively listening. You weren't just kind of there thinking,
Right.
He's going crazy.
Yeah. Oh my God, take a
Also listening without the intent to immediately reply.
Right.
If you're just listening to someone talk and the whole time in your head you're like, oh, I can't wait till they stop talking, so I'm just gonna grill them and roast them, torch their ass, you know.
Yeah. Fucking,
Um,
you know what I'm saying?
That is
Yeah,
not
toast
actually
action.
active listening.
Right.
It's actually passive listening.
Yeah.
If listening at all. Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
You're hearing.
just-
You're hearing.
yeah,
Yeah, you
you're
hear
hearing.
them.
Mhm.
Definitely. I thought what was really interesting, it didn't click till John was talking, but what does this remind you of?
The graph.
Yeah.
The 4 dimensions. Or no, the quadrant.
From that book, right? In that book, the quote that I have on my whiteboard is in order to increase on in order to progress on increasingly higher planes, you have to learn, commit, and do.
Those spiral, upward spiral.
Upward spiral, right? Understanding, learn, trust, commit, change, do. Right? So this is the cycle of an upward spiral. Right? And so this is just what made me think of that increasing spiral. It's the last chapter in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Highly suggest you pick it up. With active listening as the y-axis on there, right? So in order to learn, you have to actively listen. And in order to trust, you have to actively listen, right? So it's a direct relationship between actively listening and time. So as time progresses, you need to get better at active listening in order to learn, change, and do. And this it's not a 3-step process, right? The x-axis is infinite.
Yeah.
So it's just infinite steps up if you're doing it right. It could be a spiral, it could be a staircase.
And also understanding where it gets flat at understanding and it gets flat at trust, that could take longer than understanding can take longer than trusting. Your trust might once you understand them, your trust might come in and then you're out into the change.
Right.
Like instantly.
Right.
So
it could be straight up just like that. Yeah,
literally.
definitely. That makes me think of like working out too. You know what I mean? You work out, you hit a plateau. You know with results. And then you work out and then you hit a plateau. And then you work out and you hit a plateau, and it's just never ending.
You have to adapt to that change.
Stair stepper. You know what I'm saying?